This is from Dennis Rogers' book, Homegrown, my favorite story, By the Hand of God, Swan Quarter, North Carolina. This is a weird story, and you can believe it or not. That's up to you. But there are a lot of people in legal documents, they say it really happened this way. The year was 1874, and the Methodists here have decided it was time they had themselves a church. Wanting to build on the higher ground in this low-lying Hyde County town, they went to see Sam Sadler, a prosperous landowner, about a lot that he had. It was prime real estate, and Sam was smart. He told them that there was no way he would give it away. And furthermore, don't ever bother to ask again. So they gave up and went to work building their simple frame church on land they had gotten from H.A. Hayes. It was a nice lot, but dangerously close to sea level. The church was dedicated on September 16th, 1876, and it was a joyous Sunday. The Methodists finally had themselves a church. 3 days later, a storm roared into Swan Quarter. All day Wednesday it rained, and the wind howled. Wednesday night saw flooding and roads, roofs ripped from homes. Some houses were destroyed by the rampaging weather. The storm continued into Thursday, when it finally began to wane. Water stood 5 feet deep in places, and Swan Quarter was a devastated town. Suddenly, someone looked at the humble little Methodist church. The force of the water had moved it from its spinning brick pilings, and it was flooding onto the street. Spindly brick pilings, rather. And it was flooding into the street, a street now called Oyster Creek Road. It moved slowly up the street, in spite of everything the men could do to stop it. It bumped into a general store, located about where the Swan Quarter Volunteer Fire Department sits now. Men tied ropes to the building, fighting for a footing in the swirling water, but they couldn't hold it. It kept moving until it reached the center of town, the corner of Oyster Creek Road and US 264 Business. Then a curious thing happened. The building took a sharp right turn and headed down the road like some giant living thing. It went for 2 more blocks that way, men fighting to hold it back until it reached the corner of what is now Church Street. Then it moved slightly off its straight-line course and settled to the ground as the water receded. It stopped right in the middle of the lot Sam Sadler had refused to sell, the exact place the Methodists had wanted their church in the first place. The next morning, Sam went to the courthouse and gave the land to the Methodists. Like I said, you can believe it or not, but the people here do. People like the Reverend Robert F. Randall, the former pastor who told the story of Providence United Methodist Church. Every time I researched the story and got another little piece of information, a chill ran up my back. The preacher said, I talked to old people who had seen it, and one thing is certain. That building moved in spite of everything people could do. On the front of the small building, located just behind the new Methodist church, is a small sign that says simply, "The church moved by the hand of God." You can argue with me if you want to about that, but I won't. That's Dennis Rogers, Homegrown, 1979. Thanks, Dennis.